I'm very lucky to have with us today a person of type whom I've not had any chance to talk to recently. He's a social entrepreneur from our Himalayan region. Today we have with us right now Pavitra Joshi. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Pavitra.
Thank you, Professor Mathur, for first of all, hosting this and inviting me. So I'm Pavitra Joshi. I've been working on my own social enterprise in the Himalayas, in the Indian Himalayas, specifically Uttarakhand, which is also my native place. So I come from Almora, and then, well, it's a place where I have never lived. I never lived, and it's a place where actually 100 years back, my Dadaji had out-migrated out of in search of better livelihood. And then born as a defense kid. My father was in the Indian Air Force. I was traveling around and been to most parts of India. I studied and like any Indian child was, trying to become a doctor or maybe engineer or whatever. But then, I went on to do something completely different. I did zoology in my bachelor's and then did master's in social entrepreneurship from TIS Mumbai. And that is when I kind of had the realization that I really aspire to do something in my native place where I come from. So after 100 years of my lineage or 100 years of my family coming out of Almora, I went back, kind of reverse migrated to my roots. Started something there. It's called KumaonKhand Agro Innovations and Hospitality Private Limited. So there we kind of are trying to create an ecosystem for hemp, a global ecosystem for hemp in Indian Himalayas. And currently, I'm working full time at KumaonKhand as a founder and CEO. And I've been doing this now for last 5 years. It started as a college project for me back in 2019 and incorporated KumaonKhand in 2021. And that's pretty much what I do and live for and live with. That's
So tell us what you actually do.
yeah. Yeah. Uh, so I pretty much do. I pretty much do everything that any entrepreneur, early stage entrepreneur does. Because uh, so how I started, I'll just give you a brief, insight into the journey, how it started for me, and how I have basically stabilized KumaonKhand, giving 5 years into creating an enterprise out of the Himalayas, from the Himalayas, and Uh, so for me, it started as a college project, as I was saying back in 2019. We during our college days, we used to get like 3 months period to also start our own, basically venture. It was called pilot. So we did a pilot of sorts back in 2019. And I was a solo person back then. And the idea for me was to see basically at the same time in India, and specifically in Uttarakhand, that's a hilly state in the Indian Himalayas. That's where Uttarakhand's industrial hemp policy came about in 2018. And this was in 2019 that I was doing my pilot. And I saw it as an opportunity because the hemp application and hemp usage is very different. It's now quite, renowned across the world because of CBD and other medical uses. But specifically in the culture, the traditional and indigenous culture of the Kumaoni people, which is also the community which I come from. In the Kumaoni culture, it's very ingrained as a food. It's very ingrained as a like in our thali, in our basically in our food system also, it's ingrained as a chutney, as a sauce. Ingrained as a as an ingredient, just like cumin seeds or any other seeds. We kind of use it for tadka, and we kind of use it. So it was part of my upbringing as part of my mother's recipes and the food that I was having. So it was something which in Kumaon people don't really associate taboo with hemp or taboo with bhang, the word that goes around locally. And but it was very surprising to know. I mean, when you kind of live in a society which is very diverse in India, you kind of also hear about bhang and its other things from other people. And so it was very surprising back then. But again, I mean, you kind of come to know about it as a whole diversity. And when I started doing my pilot in 2019, I kind of had the validation, or rather the support from the policy perspective, because 2018 already the policy about industrial hemp was, standardized in the Uttarakhand state. And then when I kind of started doing my whole secondary research and primary research, I went to the fields, what is happening, the type of growth that we see with cultivation, the production, value addition. So there were few insights that I could take with myself. Firstly, that there was no Himalayan startup which was working not just on this particular problem, but also like a lot of other problems. Because see, when we see the Himalayas, the Himalayas, it's a resourceful, region. A lot of resources are coming from there, be it minerals, be it herbs, be it food, and also organic food, because the most of the farmers are doing small farmers first of all, and then they are doing sustenance farming. So whatever they're growing, it's basically for themselves and without any fertilizer and pesticides. So the one aspect of the whole agriculture system was that so value addition was the best. There was no value addition or processing that was happening in the state. Even though 70% of the Uttarakhand's population is into agriculture. And the most of the land holdings are like really small because it's mountain terrace farming and mountainous agriculture. So there again, I had to kind of see what I can, value add to. That is where the whole idea of value addition to the Himalayan resource in the Himalayas started for me, as a also coming as a Himalayan person, coming as a Himalayan community person to do something there and there itself. So that was the one identification of problem, and hemp was just the way to kind of solve the whole thing, because it is also something which I kind of realize is trendy. It's also something which I can create a niche with, and it's a Himalayan origin crop. Hemp started, the whole origin of the hemp story is actually from the Himalayas. So we kind of found that as a resource to start with to solve livelihood challenges in the Himalayas, where people don't have to really out migrate for better livelihood or better farming from or leave their agriculture behind. There's another interesting fact that, Professor Mathur, that so the region which I come from, the district which I come from, Almora itself, there are more than 100 host villages.
Yeah.
Now you would ask me very surprising, yeah, there are more than 100 ghost villages. And you know what ghost villages are? Basically, people have abandoned their homes.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's the same. So there's just barren fields and empty houses now. There's nothing called home. There's just empty houses.
Well, that's a
So
shocker.
I mean,
I had
yeah,
no idea. It's quite a shocking
yes.
thing. I had no idea. There are ghost towns in the US which were abandoned
Hmm.
by coal mines, copper mines, railways, so on. But I had no idea that situation in Almora is so bleak at times that people just abandon the whole village.
And it's not just, I mean, Almora is where more than 100 villages have become ghost villages. It's mostly due to lack of access to resources, firstly, access to, a job, basically. So people out migrate from the top mountainous region to maybe nearer to the cities and this thing. So the villages are getting abandoned. And in Uttarakhand, I mean, the whole state of Uttarakhand, more than 1,500 villages are ghost villages.
Wow.
And this is a fact, yeah, this is a fact from 2019 that I studied. So maybe more now. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And so we saw that opportunity. And firstly, for me, I mean, it's a small, people ask me about the larger impact or the larger outcome of what I've been able to achieve. And I start very small, sir, where I say that I have reverse migrated. I kind of live there now. And that's where my journey starts from, actually. And in the larger scheme of things, I really want to do bigger change. Hemp is just one solution for me currently, where I've been able to build a use case and been able to also build a company to say and to start with. The larger focus area is, of course, to solve livelihood challenges, the climate issues in the Himalayas, and through various other resources locally available with indigenous.
Yeah. Okay. But tell us how you balance the social and the profit part.
Right. Uh, I mean, so that's where the whole self-analysis and everything also begins. I mean, for us, because I was literally starting everything from scratch. Because um, with my upbringing in India and father from really from the government, having done his services, and my mother a homemaker. So I was really starting from scratch with very limited resources and whatever I can put in. So the whole idea after college for me was to start something of my own. That was, I mean, really ambitious, if not courageous. And then the real and I didn't. I mean, the courage part was maybe that I didn't sit for placements. So in my college, anyway, like we were supposed to, we already got that entrepreneurial mindset. Maybe
Mm, mm,
the aspiration was to start something and maybe move back. The first aspiration was to move back, and as soon as I completed my degree, there was COVID to happen. So it was a lockdown in March of 2020. That is when I completed the course. And so the first thing that I really aspired for was to move back to the mountains, to the people who have made promises to. Uh, it was like that, to the people, to the stakeholders, right? Because I've already committed like a few things, and even though small, to start small, but that was like the first motivation for me. And then self. Now again, so from 2020 to 2021, I kind of found only one good job that I can find in Almora in Kasar Devi is the specific area which I come from. I'll again, maybe if you allow, briefly share the history later. And so I moved to Kasar Devi, and then in 2021, I finally incorporated the company. So from 2020, June, July onwards till November of 2021, I was in a way also working on my own thing basically, and also kind of doing a job. And in this time, I was also, I mean, I allowed myself to settle in, kind of live in the place for the first time because I was already visiting back then, did my pilot, but never lived for
right.
lived basically.
Yeah.
And then the whole motivation was to make it profitable, right? I mean, so if I am not, so first thing was to sustain myself through what I'm building, and then to again, create some employment for local people, and then again a larger impact with the farmers. So what we did initially, I mean, the whole model was to kind of build it sustainably, financially sustainably as well. And initially, the focus is not to create large outcomes or large impact. The impact, I think, is a long-term investment always. And initial, I mean, the initial push was to create profitability and to create sustainability in the business. So we started when I incorporated in 2021. We already had secured, a couple of grants. We got support from Ministry of Agriculture here in India through an IIM Kashipur, and that is how basically we got some fundings also. I put my initial capital also. I did my savings, uh, kind of relied on that to sustain me for a period. And and then when we had those grants, we kind of invested in the manufacturing. So it was not on the day zero that we started our own manufacturing. We started with contractual manufacturing, everything in the Himalayas, but with contractual manufacturing. When we had the validation from the market for our products, we kind of moved towards setting up our own manufacturing, creating SOPs, because everything comes with a cost. And in initial days, I mean, I couldn't really afford everything. But in the long term, yes. I mean, in the long term, yes, I can really put my money into different aspects of doing the business. And say, for example, initially I was doing the whole content, everything by myself, and now we kind of have dedicated one agency or rather a film company which is kind of doing everything for us in terms of content, films, and impact stories. So that is how we slowly um, have invested because there's again like a whole race uh, to also scale fast, which is again specifically in the entrepreneurial world, there's a whole race to scale fast, take money. But in a niche segment like health, what I believe is if I don't really learn while while I'm growing the business because it's a very niche product, niche segment, and also doing it in India, it's not really the whole medicinal side of the cannabis, but we're kind of playing with the whole ecosystem. We are also offering the experiential part where you can come and stay with us. We have done some construction with hemp. There's a hemp store which houses more than 40, 50 SKUs of hemp products. And, people come, it's a whole experiential part. But then there's again, I mean, to build it to this level also took like for us like 3 years from scratch. So
Mm.
that is again, I mean, now we are at stage where we are trying to, sorry, now we are at stage where we are trying to look at, fundraising or through equity and also look at other options.
Yeah, but
But so far, I have basically, sorry, so far I
no,
have basically put in my efforts and everything.
but you are a normal company, right? You are not a non-profit,
No, 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 no. We are a for-profit private limited company.
right? So, how can you expect continuous grants?
No, no, so we don't really. It's also like in India, you kind of get grants only in the initial stages, right? Maybe for prototype development or maybe for certain infrastructure. And most of these grants in India, maybe coming through government channels or some other CSRs, is capped in the initial first 2 to 3 years. So the grant was, of course, through for a vision basically that we secured, and it's a competitive process. Uh, but when we got it, it was just maybe a boost because when we secured the grant, before that also I put like my 2 years into whole research. So my master's thesis was also on the same topic, hemp entrepreneurship in India,
Yeah.
and so so I kind of put my whole energy into kind of also building the academic and research part of the whole business. So it's in a way I everything that I do in business also has to be research backed. And specifically like in a case where I was doing something very niche, I didn't find a lot of secondary research material also. So I had to like go and create that material as well.
Okay. So, what does the future look like for you?
The future looks, I mean, exciting. I'm really like more spontaneous as a person. So I kind of, how I see the whole vision is enabling an ecosystem for a lot of research and development in the Himalayas. Hemp being one topic of that. Second is also kind of fostering, enabling again an ecosystem to foster entrepreneurship in the Himalayas. So we also do an event called Mela. Mela is like coming together of people, and it's like a festival. So where we have people, different people, mostly from the entrepreneurial ecosystem in India and outside, come and experience, startups and come and experience startup exhibiting from all over the place, Ladakh, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Northeast, and they kind of gather up and then we club in music, poetry, and other things. So the whole idea is that we keep hosting these events, kind of also foster rural entrepreneurs, some micro level entrepreneurs, and enable some connects and also an academic connect somewhere in the Himalayas. Because it's also like it's a place where not many people look after. It's mainly the cities. Anything to foster in India or rather anywhere in the world, it's mainly blooming in the cities. But in the remote Himalayan villages or remote villages anywhere in the world, it's rather difficult. So we kind of see Himalayas as a ground for us, and we want to foster mainly the innovation, entrepreneurship, and hemp is one topic that we're really interested in doing, starting this whole. you know, this, I mean, the whole initiative with. And if somebody comes, we kind of want to be an enabler for them. So somebody may be getting inspired through our story, or there are a lot of people who definitely get inspired, and maybe more after this um, talk. But
Okay. All right.
then we kind of see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you an unrelated question. How do people cope with the cold in their homes?
Right. Uh, so I'll so again, I mean, right now I'm in Delhi, so that's why you're maybe seeing me in a t-shirt. Otherwise, if I had been in back in my place,
Where
you
are
would
you
have
right
seen me.
now? Where are you?
I'm in Delhi, sir.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, I'm in Delhi right now. So
Yeah.
that's why me in a
Yeah.
t-shirt is,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I mean, it's even now it's like 5 degrees, 6 degrees in my place, and in winters it is really harsh. We work at around 6,500 feet above sea level to 12,000 feet above sea level. That's the altitude range at which we work currently. So the place where I work Kasari is again 6,500, 2,000 plus meters above sea level, and it's cold out there, and we don't have a. I mean, we don't really need a fan or an AC or this thing. And there's no central conditioning also there basically. So people actually rely on forest wood and maybe traditional ways of heating the room. So one aspect is like a lot of houses here have bukhari. I don't know if you know
No, I don't.
bukhari.
No.
So Bukhari is this traditional, conventional. It heats up the room through convention. Uh, it's made out of cast iron, and you put forest wood into it. You burn it, and it has a closing with a glass or cast iron, and it heats up the whole room through convention.
So it's
So
a wood.
once you lit up the fire,
It's a wood pump. It's a pump.
it's a wood.
It's a wood stove, basically.
Yeah, it's like that. You can also completely made out. It's like a box made out of cast iron, or some way. Sometimes it can be fancier with glass, and you can of course keep your things on top of it. It will heat it, and it's inside the room. There's a chimney which is like an outlet,
Yeah.
so the heat goes outside, and it
Yeah.
heats up the room through convention. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is common in the very cold parts of the US. Sometimes it's called a wood stove, and there are modern wood stoves also available.
Right, 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 right. So
Right.
that's very common in even in UK, Europe, and Germany. Also, you have the same concept.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
Uh, I'm sure. So again, I was maybe telling about Kasar Devi, right? So there's a big connect with Kasar Devi with the US. I don't know if you know, but
No.
there was. I mean, okay. So there are three places on Earth which kind of share the same energy field. So one they say is Machu Picchu, which is in the US. Then the Stonehenge in the UK and Kasar Devi in India. So they say that there's a geomagnetic field here, which is the Van Allen belt phenomena. So I'll also maybe put it out on chat. And then again, like over here, we had Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan visited Kasarthivi back in 1950s. It's also, I mean, where I come from, Kumau. It's also the place where Steve Jobs visited, and Mark Zuckerberg again came. Recently. Because of maybe the spiritual, so whenever they say there's always a phase where you kind of feel lost, and self doubt is there in the journey of entrepreneurship. So you kind of seek answers, and Kumau has been favorite and for a lot of entrepreneurs and even artists for that matter of fact. So Beatles were here in again in the era, and so there's a whole mix of hippieism and spirituality in Kasar Devi, and I mean, that was the reason. And even Timothy Leary, the Harvard professor who did the LSD research, was here in, and like a lot of people have been here in Kasari. And it's also the place where I mean, Nobel laureate Donald Ross was born. So Almora, so who got the whole Nobel Prize for his research on malaria. And so it's a very it's kind of a hub of spirituality, literature, and also some aspect of hippies. And because from the days in 50s and 60s, it was kind of a place. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Because
that's a very, very fascinating story. Actually, as it happens, you are the fourth person I know who's working in Kumaon. You know,
yeah,
there's
okay,
one young Indian American. He's in Champavat. He's growing tea there. Okay, on a
okay,
non-profit basis, uh, but non-profit plus social enterprises. So the farmers are
okay,
cooperative tea farmers. And then there was a person I talked to who's in health,
yeah,
and there's another person. So it looks like that, there's a lot of attraction of the
yes,
Himalayas and entrepreneurship and social activities, which is certainly very heartening to hear that it's disjointed a bit in the sense that everybody is
hmm,
operating independently. The
right,
Kuma, of course, is a region with 7 districts, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah,
So it's pretty
yeah,
large. You can't really know what somebody else is doing. But it looks like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
attracting its fair share of young people because
yeah,
of its partly mysticism and all that. So I'm
mhm,
glad you are there, and hope that you can make an impact and grow this beyond hemp. Hemp is, of course, bhang. And even in Jaipur, when I
yeah,
was growing up, bhang was not considered something unusual.
yeah, yeah,
On Holi, especially that thandai that we used to get, always had bhang in it. It was
yeah, yeah,
it's normal, where people used to say marijuana is legal or not legal. And the hippies who used
right,
to come, they used to say, what is this? Well, this
right,
is normal here. But
yeah,
it
yeah.
will be great to get some recipes that have bhang in
Sure,
it.
sure, sure.
So if you could
Right,
share
right. This
some.
is, I mean, so there's again, like this whole, I mean, misnomer or rather a misconception. So the food recipes that we do, so say for example, like kumau, we use hemp seeds, and hemp seeds have no levels of THC in them, basically zero THC.
But there's
Okay,
CBD.
so so even in CBD, there's no THC. So THC is the intoxicating part. So
I
there's
know
a
the
full
difference I know the difference between CBD and THC. So,
Right. So
uh,
even the hemp seeds, so one of our famous things that we do, and we also sell across Amazon platforms, like Amazon, is basically like bhang ka namak. It's a seasoning basically. It's called hemp seed salt in English if I translate. And it's a seasoning, hemp seasoning made out of hemp seeds and other things. And then there's no THC. It's basically completely non-intoxicating to say, but it's like super tasty and super rich in protein and omegas. Yeah. So, but it's just how the whole association, is kind of misleading for like a lot of people.
yeah, by now, I think most people know the difference between THC
Yes.
and CBD
Right.
because
Right.
CBD is much, you know,
Yeah.
people are using as pain control medication also,
Right.
whereas THC
Right.
is, much different. Okay. Anything
Yeah.
else you want to tell us? Any advice
Um,
for young people?
Uh, yeah, I mean, so I mean, if you're starting something of your own and looking at growing it and becoming big, and if you're starting mostly, I mean, this is for people who can relate to the journey. If you're starting something from scratch, I think perseverance is the key. I mean, if you just have to like persevere through the times, there will be times of self doubt and different things also, and people questioning you. So just be focused on what you're building, and also when in doubt, you ask your professors, you ask your mentors, and you kind of also reach out to the whole ecosystem, to the people, to your parents, and everyone. Keep everyone in loop, and I mean that's how you kind of can make it big. Have the trust of people. That's always, I think, essential. Don't try to do it in silos, because I think a lot of young people, specifically, I mean, especially when people are in the impressionable age, 20s, early 20s, they kind of want to do things by themselves, but that's not really the way. I mean, that's maybe coming from the mistakes that I've committed. But just keep everyone in the loop, more professors, your professors, mentors, parents, everyone. And then I think you can like really grow it big.
Well, in your case, your parents were totally supportive. So that was obvious that they weren't. By the way, is your mother also from Kumaon?
Yeah, yes, sir. My mother and my father both are from. My mother is from Nainital
Yeah.
and my father is from Almora.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you so much, Pavitra. Let's end it here today. And I'll
Thank
be
you, sir.
back with another young person or an expert soon,
Okay.
or a young expert, as in this case. Okay. Bye, everybody.